But now, technology has exceeded our expectations, as robots may become like humans one day, with artificial intelligence and self-awareness.
Now, imagine how the world would look like if we have self-aware robots to help the humanity in different aspects, like human health. Right, they could be very helpful to improve treatments that can cure many diseases. They can be able to support and diagnose people from their home, environment, or even workplace, and they could let more people to take control of their health without going to the hospital and without paying expensive medical consultations.
But in order to know how could robots develop self-awareness, first we have to analyze how and where does self-awareness come from.
Scientists from the University of Washington affirm that to be conscious is to think. To be self-aware is to realize that you are thinking being and to think about your thoughts.
Awareness is observing. It's being able to objectively watch what's happening inside of you, as if it was happening to someone else. It is the observer that is in each of us.
In fact, neuroimaging studies showed that thinking about ourselves, recognizing images of ourselves, recognizing our own voice,
Hey Siri,
and reflecting our thoughts and feelings are different forms of self-awareness involved in the cerebral cortex.
The cerebral cortex is a part of the human brain that has about 20 billion neurons in it and carry out the highest levels of mental functioning. However, recent researches that made the University of Iowa prove that self-awareness emerges from much more distributed interactions among networks of brain regions, like the thalamus, the insular cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the medial prefrontal cortex.
The thalamus plays an important role, as it is involved in mental processes that shape our way of perceiving things and act on the environment that surrounds us. When it is connected to many areas of the cerebral cortex, it's able to carry specific sensorial information and act in the synchronization of the necessary neural activity in order to maintain the level of self-awareness.
Then, the insular cortex is a part of the cerebral cortex with heavy connectivity to an extensive network of cortical and subcortical brain regions, serving sensory, emotional, motivational, and cognitive functions. It also receives information from outside the body, like auditory, olfactory, gustatory, and visual. This helps us to process positive and negative emotions, obtained through different modalities such as language, sounds, pictures, or even touch.
The anterior cingulate cortex is interconnected with the emotional limbic system and the cognitive prefrontal cortex. It has an important role in integration of neuronal circuitry for affect regulation, cognition, and response selection, in addition to other aspects of social behavior.
Finally, it's of special importance for human social cognition and behavior, the medial prefrontal cortex, because it has reciprocal connections with brain regions that are implicated in emotional processing, memory, and higher order sensory regions.
Let's think about the brain. If we duplicate its regions, processes, and functions with a virtual system that contains microprocessors and certain genetic algorithms, it's possible to generate self-aware robots, since it simulates a network where neurons are interconnected. This system is called neuromorphic computing system.
Actually, according to some cognitive scientists like Stanislas Dehaene, Håkan Law, and Sid Kreider, consciousness is computational. So it's possible to create self-aware robots by implementing computations to kindle consciousness and replicating the human brain with neural activity. In addition, they also affirm that it arises from two main activities done by the brain. The first one is by selecting information and making it available for computation, and the second one is by self-monitoring these computations to get a subjective idea.
In fact, there are three basic points that explain what a robot should have in order to be self-conscious. The first thing would be a body or apparatus that responds to stimuli. The second one would be a method of communication or a language engine. And the third one would be an algorithm that attempts to deduce the reasons and motivations for these communications.
To support the previous information, an experiment was done a few years ago with the purpose of proving that artificial intelligence is evolving in a very impressive way. The experiment was called NOW, where Selner Bringsjord, a professor at the Rensselaer Polytechnic, tested 3 robots for the purpose of testing Bloch's thesis or not. The 3 robots were built with a neuromorphic computing chip, which are basically microprocessors whose architecture imitates a human brain model and the network of neurons are interconnected.
Amazingly, one robot showed signs of self-awareness since the task consisted on the following. They were programmed to think that 2 of them were given a dumping pill, and the objective was to identify which one of them received the pill and is still able to speak. Not only but also they were asked which one of them was silenced, and surprisingly, one robot answered, "I don't know."
Which pill did you receive?
I don't know. Sorry, I know now. I was able to prove that I was not given the dumbing pill.
Now that we understand how could robots develop self-awareness, our hypothesis was correct. Fortunately, scientists have already proved that self-awareness is possible in a robot with the NOW experiment. We also find out that in order to make all this possible, we have to understand how the self-awareness is developed in our brain, and consequently all the chemical processes that are required to generate it.
That's really great and really impressive. But we can say that building a robot with self-awareness is ethical and at the same time unethical.
The ethical reasons are the following. There are certain codes from South Korea for preventing human abuses to robots and vice versa. These codes will be relative to the function that a robot will have, considering that they will be acquiring areas that implies a bigger intelligence for 2020. With this, North Korea is predicting that all Korean homes will have a robot in order to have easier daily tasks. So, to allow the use of them, this government established specific rules based on the 3 laws of robots.
The unethical reasons are the following. Before we reach the ultimate goal for artificial intelligence, humans will be replaced by robots in many aspects, since they will be capable enough to perform things that only humans are able to perform. Other reason is that there are robots that are considered citizens, like Sophia. Sophia is a social robot that is considered a citizen in Saudi Arabia. To grant a robot citizenship is a declaration of trust in a technology that is not yet trustworthy. Citizenship is the most honorable status a country grants for its people, making us valuable, unique, and irreplaceable from other things. So granting legal rights to robots will directly impound human rights, thinking that they will be considered just or even more valuable than us.
In conclusion, it's possible to create a robot with self-awareness with a neuromorphic computing system that imitates the human brain model and replicates the neural activity of a human being.